Continuing with Canto 7, the Signs of God, Chapter 6, Prahlad instructs his demoniac schoolmates. Text 4. Facing up there. Looks alright? Okay. Right. Continue.
तत्प्रयासो न कर्तव्यो यथायुर्व्ययापरम् तथा विन्दते क्षेमम् कुन्दाचरणाम्बुजम्.
Translation: endeavors merely for sense gratification or material happiness through economic development are not to be performed, for they result only in a loss of time and energy with no actual profit. If one's endeavors are directed toward Krishna consciousness, one can surely attain the spiritual platform of self-realization. There's no such benefit from engaging oneself in economic development. So Prahlad continues to instruct his friends, schoolmates, and as Prabhupada mentions also, which he reiterates what Prahlad is saying, that mostly people work so hard. They work very hard day and night. Yeah, so even if they get benefits from some economic endeavor, it's not going to help them in terms of their real problem of life, which is what Prabhupada is saying. Or in another sense, actually they don't know what the real problem of life is. So that's kind of amusing. Prabhupada makes that statement. Meaning nobody knows what life is all about. Yeah, they don't know. They just think, you just enjoy. And they don't understand why they suffer sometimes and not suffer. So why we find all this situation in the society is because Prabhupada makes it also very clear, is because of ignorance or lack of spiritual education. One reason why our movement is pushing this book distribution and the devotees are getting together to teach courses and so on, to make sure that we understand we are not the body, we are spirit souls. So that's why this knowledge which used to be prevalent is now covered up. So we don't find that. So therefore Prabhupada in the purport says this is due to lack of spiritual education. So now we kind of know what spiritual education means. We apply some principles, but we may not fully use it properly. And part of the problem is we have leaders in society who are actually pushing the economic development more than anything else. And therefore Prabhupada says we are misguided by such blind leaders. And they want you, because their intent is to make money. They feel money is the goal of life. The more money you make, then it's best for you. So therefore they try to keep people into bodily comforts. So that's the goal nowadays. We are misguided. You can see even in our own American president, how he's
focused
more in terms of how the country benefits in terms of economics. He don't want to help any other country. Because what happens, he won't lead us to the goal of the real goal of life. And everyone is, as Prabhupada says, cultivates lifestyles like cats and dogs. And they will become like cats and dogs in the next lifetime. And so what happens is a continuous samsara cycles, birth, death, old age and disease in different species and so on and so on. So the benefit of human life is lost.
So Prabhu, this verse, it does not mean that we should not work, right?
No,
it does not
say
mean
like
that we should not study other than the spiritual books, right? It means we should do that, but not for self-gratification.
Yeah. He's saying because the goal you have to see from Prahlad's point of view. They're in a demon society, asuras. The asuras' goal is nothing to do with spirit. And so he's saying that is wrong. It should be spirit centered.
The focal point should not be economic development. The focal point should not be economic development.
Yes, the goal isn't economic development. That's what he's trying to say. The goal is not that. Yeah. And Srila Prabhupada also maintains that. It's not that, if the whole country nobody works, then it's not going to progress anyway. Either way. So a bunch of lazy people will become, everyone will become lazy and not expect someone to feed them like that. So that's also wrong. So that's the point. So in the next verse, continuing.
Tato yateta kushala. Kemaya bhavamashrita. Shariram paurusham yavan.
Therefore, while in material existence, bhavam ashritaha, a person fully competent to distinguish wrong from right must endeavor to achieve the highest goal of life as long as the body is stout and strong and is not embarrassing by dwindling. So one other thing is, Prahlad is trying to emphasize here is one should know what is right and wrong. Okay? You can be existing in a material environment, you can work in a material environment, but you have to also understand what is the wrong thing to do and what is the right thing to do. But how would someone know what is wrong or right? If you don't have anyone telling you what is wrong or right, how do you come to that conclusion what is wrong or right?
Mind.
Senses. Whatever feels good, that must be right.
Yeah.
So that's how society is dragging itself. But why is it wrong to kill somebody if it feels good for somebody? Because such laws are actually coming from the scriptures. So they've adopted certain things that they don't want to die and get killed unnecessarily. So that those laws are good. But anything else like there's God and worshipping God, they don't want those things. And to distinguish what is right and wrong has to be based on scripture. So Prahlad Maharaj is saying that from a very young age, children should be taught what is right and wrong. Otherwise, very hard to train them much later. Once you're conditioned, you don't want such things. Very hard. Which is why he was saying like a tail of the dog cannot straighten it. So the point is we should, from a very young age, if we teach them, then they won't waste their lives as they get older. They will know what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing. So in the verse also, Prabhupada highlights that, Bhayam Ashritaha, he says. So Bhayam Ashrita in the second paragraph indicates that the materialistic way of life is always fearful. Bhayam. Right? Yeah, you can say that. Padam padam yatvi padam. Every step there is some danger. You don't know what your choices are and you're not sure if the rules have changed or not. That's how it is. And then he continues, materialistic life is full of anxieties and fear. Again, he highlights by all this is because it's always changing. New leader will come and he'll come with his own rules. Then after a few years, another person will come. They'll say, "No, we change this way." So there's always anxiety. One group of leaders will say, "From next year, everyone must pay 30% tax minimum." Then everyone is. Then the year after, another guy will say, "No, 30%. 40%." Like that. So therefore, there's always full of anxieties and fear. Well, I'll lose all this. So everyone is fearful, from the most wealthy person to the least wealthy person. Everyone is fearful for the different reasons. Similarly, Prabhupada says, accepting the reading bhavam ashritaha. The word bhavam refers to unnecessary trouble and problems. Again, the same thing. Unnecessarily, you have to sometimes impose difficulties for yourself. Sometimes people work 2 or 3 jobs just because they can enjoy something without thinking. Yeah. Or they even think and say, "Yeah, this is worth it, worth my suffering." And that will cascade into major difficulties. If they have to do 2, 3 jobs, then it becomes a problem. If there's a traffic jam or here or there, so much problems. Or if there's an earthquake or some volcano erupting, so many things. So unnecessary trouble can come. And now, because they don't understand the goal of life, they think to pursue, to do all these things is worth it. But if they understand what the goal of life is, then they will know that these are all troubles. The difference is without understanding spiritual life, your material life, as you say, is sense enjoyment. Then you compete with one another. The Joneses, as they say, or the Smiths, or the Patels, the Pillais, or whatever. They all will do compete. Okay, I have this, you have that. So they all want to say who has the Lexus, who has the BMWs in the backyard of the car. So unnecessary trouble and problems. And all this takes place because if they know the goal of life is to please Krishna, then they will realize, I don't have the over-endeavor. Instead of having a 10-room house, right? 3 people living in a 10-room house. Doesn't make sense, So it's all empty. The rest of the rooms will be taken by the ghosts and like that. So that's why Prabhupada says, for want of Krishna consciousness. Because they don't have that to fulfill their life and satisfy them, they go out trying to satisfy through senses. And senses you cannot really satisfy. And then they become perpetually embarrassed. Meaning they have to come back again. They're not happy in this life. Birth, death, old age, disease. Go in cycle.
So I heard this one saying.
Yeah.
You can either long for the infinite, which is Krishna.
You are what?
You can either long for the infinite.
Or you can long for Krishna, the infinite.
Or long for infinite things.
Or
long for infinite things.
Long for infinite.
Either choice.
Play of words. And therefore, Prabhupada says, one is surely full of anxieties. So conclusion is you must be in anxiety. Right? And if we understand the goal of life, then we know how to operate among ourselves. So Varnashram system makes sense. We can help each other according to our abilities. But if you don't know that, then we will compete with one another. Whether you are Brahmana or Kshatriya, will fight with each other. Srila Prabhupada made a comment that the present world is run by Shudras and Vaishyas. So he says the Vaishyas are the Americans, the Shudras are the Russians. So and Shudras and Vaishyas always fight. Now, which we see that. It's always happening. Even in our own society, within America also the same thing. The Vaishyas are running the country and the Shudras are all complaining. And therefore, you see all these difficulties that's going on. Now, if we don't follow Krishna consciousness, then we'll get into the cycle of birth, death, and old age and disease, and all these are very a state where we don't want to keep coming back and then going through all this cycle again and again. Puna puna charvita charvananam, as Prahlad Maharaj already said earlier. But he says we have to realize this. Once you realize that, then things become simple. Actually, the goal is easy. How you execute becomes complicated based on what we desire. Sometimes as devotees, we know what the goal is, but we don't want to achieve the goal. We think we can put it at the back burner. Maybe when we are old enough, then we will do it. Plenty of times we hear that. When I retire, then I will focus on spiritual life. But by then, it will be too late, because if you don't train yourself early, it's very hard to train later. So your mind becomes very weak. Some of you will know that if you join very late in your life, it's kind of difficult to do some things. Because you're so used to doing certain things. Yeah, you go. You just sit there. We're getting a darshan of the gopis. As long as she is peaceful, huh?
We are peaceful.
It's okay, no problem. So therefore, Prabhupada says we have to keep ourselves healthy and strong in mind and intelligence. In mind and intelligence means, first of all, we have to be trained. Trained by what? Trained through Shastra, through association, good positive association. What are good positive association? Those people who are interested in trying to improve their spiritual life. We are not looking for people who are just like us, flaky, not interested. then you can't really progress. So then your mind won't be strong. You cannot develop it into a strong mind, and you cannot develop your intelligence in executing Krishna consciousness. Because if you have good, strong-minded individuals, they can tell you, okay, this is good for your goal of life. This is not. If you pursue in this line, so they will be your best of friends. Let's say you're a fool if you pursue these things. Then those are good friends. People who say, no, that's okay, don't worry so much. Then you have to see, are they my well-wisher or are they just trying to make me feel good? Right? So you have to understand like that. So therefore, again, it comes back to the statement Prahlad Maharaj says, you must be able to distinguish what is right from wrong. Okay? So that's important to know what is right and what is wrong. Okay? Then you can get the goal of life based on that understanding. Right? So text 6. Go on.
Pumso Varsha Satam Hyayus Tadardam Chajitatmana Nispalam Vyada Shaurapyam Chetenadam Prapitastamah.
Every human being has a maximum duration of life of 100 years. That means you're supposed to live for 100 years, generally speaking. But for one who cannot control his senses, half of those years are completely lost because at night he sleeps 12 hours, being covered by ignorance. Therefore, such a person has a lifetime of only 50 years. So if you think about this statement, Prahlad Maharaj saying, 50% of your life is going to be sleep 12 hours. Recommended is 8 hours. So which means you lose 33% of your life. But, hold on. But if you sleep for 7 hours, it's 29%. If you sleep for 6 hours, it's 25% of your life. So you got to sleep anyway. The point is don't sleep too much. Otherwise, you lose so much of your life. And you can't live forever not doing anything. You want to say something?
Yeah. Is this 50 years, 50 years? Or?
No, this is... ordinary people.
Not much.
It doesn't matter. Even if you're on heavenly planet, your 50 years is still 50 years. Yeah, it's all relative.
The 12 hours sleeping is
Feels like heaven.
heaven time 12 hours.
Yeah. You're sleeping like a heavenly planet. Right. So there was recently, I think it was yesterday or today, there was a famous botanist scientist who was 104 years old. And he kind of committed suicide or he wanted to die through assisted death. So he's from Australia. And he didn't want to live anymore, but in the law in Australia won't allow that. You cannot die on your own. You know? Nobody should have. So he went to Switzerland. Switzerland?
Yes, Switzerland. Yes.
Sweden.
Switzerland.
Switzerland or
Switzerland.
Switzerland.
Yes.
Okay, so he went to Switzerland. And then in Switzerland, the law is you can take your life, no problem. You know? So assisted suicide. The reason he gives why he didn't want to live is that he said after when he became 90, I mean, he's very successful, well-renowned botanist scientist. He has done so many things, so much fame everywhere. But after his wife died, he's been alone. And then from his 70s, he started losing his eyesight. So at 104 years now, he can't see anything. And he's a botanist, and they like to go out in the field and do things. And he also became a cripple. He can't walk anymore. He's in a wheelchair. So he said, my life is meaningless anymore. You know, I can't see. I can hear the birds singing, but I can't see anything. I can't appreciate life anymore. And he was saying, you know, interestingly, he said he gets up every morning in the morning. And then after he takes his bath and everything, he cooks breakfast. Whatever little he can see, he cooks. And then he said after he takes his breakfast, he says he just sits and waits. And then they said, what are you waiting for? I'm waiting for lunch. Yeah, because he can't do anything. So then he said after lunch, he again sits and waits. Then he says his whole day is like that. And so he felt that he didn't want to live anymore. He cannot walk, cannot do anything. So therefore, he committed suicide. So sometimes, you know, you read statements like that, it's so, you know, meaningful that we are wasting our life, you know. And even if your life is so long, if you don't have Krishna consciousness, that's what I was thinking. If he at least knew Krishna consciousness, he would have at least chanted all day. But he didn't have anyone to help him. You know. I felt sorry, reading about him. His name is David Goodall. You know, it's I think today, right?
Yeah.
We mentioned. So I was thinking, man, sad. Okay. So don't waste your life. Use now, when your body is able. Text 7.
Mudasya bale kaishore.
Mudasya bale kaishore. Vidato yati vimsatihi. Jaraya kashtadehasya.
Yatakalpasya vimsatihi.
Yatakalpasya vimsatihi.
Prahlad Maharaj continues. In the tender age of childhood, when everyone is bewildered, one passes 10 years. Similarly, in boyhood, engaged in sporting and playing, one passes another 10 years. In this way, 20 years are wasted. Similarly, in old age, when one is an invalid, unable to perform even material activities, one passes another 20 years wastefully. Yeah. So I have a godbrother who's in his 80s now, and he's got glaucoma, so his eyes is practically gone. But he can see, you know, so he has a big screen in his home, and then he will have darshan of the deities, hear the classes like that. And on festival days, he'll come to take darshan, but he can hardly see, can't walk because he can't see like that. But he chants, so he'll chant like, you know, I think he's chanting like 64 rounds a day. And he'll, or when he doesn't chant, he'll listen to class continuously like that. Because he can't read, so he's listening. Or he gets some devotees to visit him and they'll read. Or he'll just talk about he does Manasa Parikram and stuff like that. So if you go and you'll find that he's more Krishna conscious than people outside. So that's the difference between him and the scientists also, I was thinking. So you could make it properly if you know how to use your time and you can understand the goal of life. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, without Krishna consciousness, one wastes 20 years in childhood and boyhood, another 20 years in old age when one cannot perform any material activities and is full of anxiety about what is to be done by his sons and grandsons and how one's estate should be protected. You see, that's very common. Half of these years are spent in sleep. Furthermore, one wastes another 30 years sleeping at night during the rest of his life. Thus, 70 out of 100 years are wasted by a person who does not know the aim of life and how to utilize this human form. It's a very serious thing. Human life is very important and we shouldn't be wasting it. So, Prahlad Maharaj's statements are all heavy like that. And he's a hard hitter. He's not going to beat around the bush. Text 8.
Durapurena kamena mohena chavaleyasha shesham greshu saptasya pramatasya payatihi.
One whose mind and senses are uncontrolled becomes increasingly attached to family life because of insatiable lusty desires and very strong illusion. In such a madman's life, the remaining years are also wasted because even during those years he cannot engage himself in devotional service. So as you get older, it's very hard. Not possible at all. Prabhupada says, right, there was a case where they asked him to chant, please chant. And he says, I can't. They can say that word can't, huh?
No, we listen to that lecture.
Huh?
She listen to the lecture.
Okay, yes. So Prabhupada says that. So that's what happens if you don't get trained at a young age, or even when you are able, if you don't take it up seriously, it becomes difficult at the time of death. Even if you are not dying, if you are crippled, you will worry 90% of the time about your problems. Rather than, okay, now I can't do anything, I should be chanting. You're not thinking like that. Yeah. So the present society is educating the young men and girls to become expert in sense gratification. But they are not being educated in the spiritual life. So Srila Prabhupada says, because of this, we have seen in the Western countries, people are only educated for sense gratification. And therefore they cannot control their senses. And what happens, they have so many problems. Disease, bad relationship, divorce rates, so many problems like that. Not knowing what to do. And therefore everyone continues, and in the end, they have no relationship with any human beings. They only have relationship with their pets. So you see, old age, everyone will have one dog or one cat or some bird in a cage.
Or two dogs.
Or two dogs, yeah. So it's like that, they all are going through so much difficulties and they don't know what life is supposed to be. And if they misuse that, then they don't get a human body in next life. Like that. So when we don't work or when we don't attempt to understand Krishna consciousness now, then Prabhupada says we are just like cats and dogs. Because cats and dogs only into sense enjoyment, like that. Therefore, he says, he ends that purport, this life of lusty desires and sense gratification is extremely risky because no guarantee of human life in the next birth.
She want to sit on the sofa.
Text 9.
Kogreshu pumana shaktam
Kogreshu puman shaktam
atmanam Jitendriya
Atmanam Jitendriya
Aneha Pashir
Sneha Pashir
Driderbadam
Sneha Pashir Driderbadam
Utsaheta Vimochitam
Utsaheta Vimochitam.
Translation: what person too attached to household life due to being unable to control his senses can liberate himself. An attached householder is bound very strongly by ropes of affection for his family, wife, children, and other relatives. Here Prahlad Maharaj is saying, if you are not careful, then you end up being so attached to your family members. Right? And if you're so attached to those kind of things, his point is, then you forget about what the goal of life is. Particularly, he's talking about people who are not Krishna conscious. And therefore, where Srila Prabhupada quotes in the purport that unless you're trained or educated from a young age, so he says, Komarachara Prabhu. What are they supposed to be taught at that young age? Dharmam Bhagavatam Miha. Right? If they don't know this, then it's very difficult for them to use their body for the right purposes. Very difficult. Then they forget. They think all these are more important like that. So somewhere in the bottom of that purport, Srila Prabhupada says, in the material world, we manufacture so many duties in the name of so many isms. But our actual duty is to free ourselves from the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. So unless you know spiritual knowledge properly, you will not accept these statements. You will say that doesn't make sense. I have family to take care of like that. Which is what he's saying. We manufacture our different types of duties. The main duty is to prepare ourselves to go back to Godhead like that. But our actual duty is free ourselves from the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. For this purpose, one must first be liberated from material bondage, especially from household life. The reason Prabhupada uses that is, among all the different ashrams, the household life is a license for enjoyment. But because it also can easily make you fall into the trap of sense enjoyment. That is the only reason he's highlighting. And that's another reason why he says to his disciples sometimes, he says, better you don't get married, remain single. Because he says it is so much things to worry about. And that's why he's highlighting them. Not that he's against it, because he himself was a householder. So from his experience, he's saying, especially from household life. Then he continues, household life is actually a kind of license for materially attached person by which to enjoy sense gratification under regulative principles. But the problem in this society is nobody wants any regulations in their sense enjoyment. He says if you don't need to get that, then you don't need to enter the household life. Therefore, he says, otherwise there's no need of entering household life. But if you need some sense enjoyment, you can, but make sure it's regulated. But this regulative principles means under the guidance of a spiritual authority. Primarily, Devi Varnashram system or under Krishna's guidance like that, or an Acharya like that. Okay? And so if you do that, then naturally you will want to train your children, If you follow a regular, you say, I want my child to be better than me. That way is proper. But most people think, I want my children to have better, more economic wealth like that than me. But actually the right thing to think carefully is, I want them to have a spiritual life better than mine. And that's what the emphasis should be. And so they send them to gurukuls, or they send them to some group of, for the girls, they send them to elderly ladies to guide them, train them, teaching how to perform activities for rituals and so on like that. And for the boys, they go to Gurukul under the auspices of a spiritual authority, train them in the study of the scriptures and so on and so forth like that.
So Prabhu, in Gurukul, do they teach other subjects also, or just Srimad Bhagavatam and just our scriptures?
No, they teach how to take up a what do you call that? An occupation, something like that.
Like Arjuna.
Whatever your the guru will identify the nature of the child and say, you have a Brahminical, you study, you know, or you're Vaishya, you can do cow herding, you're more suited for that. Or you're Brahminical, you do this. Kshatriya, you do administration. Like that. So that's how it was in the old system. But nowadays, we first of all, we need to fix what we have. So nowadays, we try to do something similar. We try to do something similar like that. So we identify students who are very good. We encourage them to take up the process seriously. Yeah. So yeah, there is facilities like that. But the person identifying must be an expert. You know, not any Tom, Dick, and Harry can go and say this person is this and this. No, it won't work like that. So
Sorry, Prabhu. Actually, I wanted to know whether like they will be doing jobs like us, or they will be taking care of like whatever their kids are going to.
Nowadays?
Yeah.
Yeah, nowadays jobs like you are doing.
They can do that.
Yeah. If you are comparing from previous 50, 100 years, it's slightly different from nowadays. Yeah, but yeah, they are able to do that because let's say they want to work outside, then they should understand, you know, I want to work outside, I want money. That's why they're working outside. So they should accept that they are not in this level. Their consciousness more like a Shudra or Vaishya. So they're going out to do those kind of activities.
When I was small, Prabhu, I remember there used to be one Shankara Shastri.
Yeah.
He used to be our very
guide,
spiritual guide. So I don't know in which grade I asked this to my parents, maybe 6th grade or 7th grade. I asked my parents, okay, I want to go join there. I want to learn. They didn't send me actually. They told, you're too young. I even keep telling my mother, no, I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
But she didn't send me actually.
Still you're too young.
But that's how parents are. You know?
Maybe if I had gone there, maybe I wouldn't have been here actually.
You'll be wearing this. No, there is advantage. You are right. If you had gone, you'll be a better, you know, you've developed differently, spiritually and transcendentally and so on. But, you know, the point is most parents don't understand those things. It's lost. Those culture that was a part of Vedic society has been lost due to the influence of material energy and different forces in the material world. And also the local people all want to enjoy senses more and more. So they all go against the government and so on, overthrow the government because they want sense enjoyment. And so you have chaos, you know. And Srila Prabhupada is trying to re-establish this Devi Varnashram system. And that's why he gives purports like that, so that we can think and understand how we can incorporate at least some of these teachings in our life at this moment. Hopefully in the future generations, they can incorporate more and more. But yes, in all cases, they can work outside. That's not an issue at all. Yeah.
No, Prabhu, here Prabhupada is saying that there is no need of entering into household life now. Some spiritual masters say that once you are in a household life, you should have kids. Without kids, household life is not considered.
It depends. You cannot make a blanket statement. Yeah. You cannot just say, yeah, must have. In Manu's Samhita, it says, if you don't have a child, then it's like barren, it's desert, and so on. But if you're preaching, then it's okay.
It's okay, right?
Yeah.
If a husband wife, they are married,
yes,
and
yes,
Devi Born Ashram, without
yes.
kids, they can just.
If they are preaching and that's and their child is Gopal or whatever they take care as their deity, that's good enough. If the focus is there, then there's no need to worry about that thing. And there's conversations where Prabhupada says that that's okay. If you can preach, that's fine. Yeah. So it's not like, must have. But for some couples, they must have, because otherwise they will go mental unstable, either the man or the woman, they have no child to take care, then they will take care of other people too much, and they cannot handle that. Like that. So sometimes they need a child, then they can do all the control and fixing and tuning and all this thing. Otherwise, they'll try to tune someone else. And it's a fact. So for those people, the spiritual master must identify and say, yes, please start a family, it'll be good for you. Like that. For those preachers are very good preachers, and if they want to preach them, the spiritual master said, go ahead. But I've seen it also. Many times they'll do a lot of preaching, but 20 years later they'll start a family. Yeah. Because the desire is not purified sufficiently. So it comes up again. We all have desires, but if you do the services properly for the right reason, then those desires can be burned in the service of devotion. But if it's not done properly, then it still is there.
Yes.
So then you have to address that. Yeah, like that. So therefore, Prahlad Maharaj has already previously warned, if you do it for sense enjoyment, then this grihastha ashram becomes griham and the kupam. It drags you down, because then everyone is interested into about sense enjoyment. So he says, you better to give it up. And that's the statement Srila Prabhupada uses. If you cannot do it, then don't get into it. Because then your senses become more and more uncontrolled. So in the next paragraph, Srila Prabhupada starts out, to return home, back to Godhead, one must be completely free from material attachment. So therefore, the earlier statement that one shouldn't be attached to the children, the wife, husband, so on, is indicated. Because if you have attachments on a mundane platform, then there's no possibility of developing love of Godhead. Not possible. So therefore, he highlights that point very quickly. And to focus on Vasudeva is difficult. And so he says, if you can focus on Vasudeva completely, then the results are very fast. What is the result? Vairagyam and Jnana. That means both knowledge and detachment takes place spontaneously, immediately. But if you have attachments and all those sort, and you're not focused on devotional aspect, you cannot give those up. Artificially also you can't give up. Just because you read something and you cannot, go home tomorrow and say, okay, wife, I'm detached from it. It doesn't work like that. Artificially also you can't. One has to perform devotional service, and it purifies your desires. Then you can give up. Okay. And at the end, the last couple of sentences, Prabhupada says, unless one is master of the senses, Jitendriya, he should not accept the renounced order of life. So this he is now pointing to those sannyasis or renunciants. A strong inclination for sense enjoyment is the cause of the material body. That means if you want to enjoy, then you need a material body to enjoy. For someone who's in the sense enjoyment. Without full knowledge, one cannot be unattached to material enjoyment. But as long as one is not in that position, one is not fit to return home back to Godhead. So he makes it very clear. And we have to accept that. Because then our practice is real. Yeah? Then we are truthful to ourselves also. You cannot pretend and say, no, I can do it. It's good to think like that, but you have to also be realistic. And then you see where you fall, and then you practice in a group of advanced devotees. Seek out advanced devotees, then you can give up your sense enjoyment. On your own, you won't be able to do it, nor can you do it with someone of your peer. You need someone who's slightly better than you, who has already renounced. So when you get such an opportunity, go and listen to them, ask them questions. And if you want siksha, you have to follow the siksha. Not just, I've asked so nice questions. It's pointless. Then that siksha has no potency. So if that siksha has to function or act on you, you have to think, contemplate, and see how you can apply it in your life. Sometimes people ask so many questions and so many Maharaj, all the same question they'll ask. Every Maharaj they'll ask. Then you wonder what is the value of asking. When are they really applying? So I remember one devotee was asking the same question. After a couple of years, the Maharajas themselves say, "You asked that last year also." Like that. So the thing is, they feel that when they ask, they feel good about asking it, but they are not applying it. When you apply, then other questions can come up. You may find that there may be other difficulties later. But if you don't apply, then the first hurdle you haven't crossed will always be there in front of you. So that's how it is. So therefore, Prabhupada says, one is not in that position, one is not fit to return home back to God. Okay? So, so think of it very carefully. It's very good for you. Yes?
So really thinking the answers may change.
Yeah. But that's a good point.
Maybe
No, but that's correct.
they wanted to hear the answer that they wanted.
I remember a conversation Srila Prabhupada has with his disciple who was asking he wanted to divorce his wife and marry another girl. So he is asking Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, "There's no such thing as divorce in Vedic culture." Then he says, "But Prabhupada, I cannot stay with this person. I think I can do better with the other person." Prabhupada again says, "There's no." And then in the end, Prabhupada says, "You do whatever you want." And the reason Prabhupada said is that if the person cannot follow the instructions of the Guru, then it's an offense. But Prabhupada wasn't happy with that, so he said, "You do what you want." And then the person will go around and say, "Prabhupada say I can do anything." So there are people like that. I know one this devotee also said that during the initiation, he said Prabhupada didn't ask him the 4 regulatory principles. So they talk like that, So now some people will say, "I wish my Guru don't ask." No, now we have all live telecast, so we have all recorded. So you cannot do that. In any case, in fact, that is the principle. Even if he asks or don't ask, it's implied in the initiation. So one cannot just hack their way out of situations like that. Okay? Text 10.
Om Radha Krishna Visrude.
Om Radha Krishna Visrude. Pranam Yomiya Yukshita. Yam Pranadya Subhi Prastais. Taskara Sevako Bane.
Translation. Money is so dear that one conceives of money as being sweeter than honey. Actually, it's not in the verse in the Sanskrit, but Srila Prabhupada adds that because it's a fact. Therefore, who can give up the desire to accumulate money, especially in household life? Thieves, professional servants, soldiers, and merchants try to acquire money even by risking their very dear lives. So here, as Prabhupada says, how money can be dearer than life is indicated in this verse. So what do? They will do any way to get some money. So he says thieves. So what do thieves do? They go and rob other people, steal from people. And Prabhupada says they don't even mind getting shot. Yeah, sometimes they get killed, but they don't mind. So which means it is more dearer to them than their own life. That's the statement he's saying. So they go through electric fence, they go and steal, they get shot, they run and stuff like that. Or attacked by watchdogs, Prabhupada says. Just to get some money only, they risk their whole life. They don't mind dying. Right? Sometimes you will say, no, not true. But there's cases also where people carry money and then they are caught by some thieves or burglars or in the highway like that with the gun. Give your money, and they're like, no, boom. Yeah. So it's like, what is wrong with these people? So the police all say, if you are caught in such a, just give everything you have here. But now these people are so crazy. Even if you give everything, they'll still kill you. So otherwise, the other situation is professional soldiers. So then different armies will hire people, and they'll say, okay, we'll give you 100,000. You just come and fight for us for 1 month, like that, or kill this person, a sniper, whatever, like that. So they'll give them 500,000, like that. And they will do that. Why? Because for money. Purpose is only for the sake of money. Even if they die, they say, if I die, make sure the money goes to my wife and children. Like that. And then even more than that, sometimes people dive deep sea. Prabhupada gives that example. To pick pearls, valuable corals and stuff like that. So, but then there could be shark infested place, or eels, electric eels, or or the wave is so bad, if you're not careful, it'll throw you against the side of the cliff and you can die. Situation so terrible, yet people will dive. Sometimes they cannot carry the equipment to breathe. They have to dive 30 feet or what without oxygen just to go and get the oysters and stuff like that. Yeah. If you have seen documentaries, you'll be amazed how these guys can dive. And when they bring the pearls, the guy who's controlling them take the pearl and give them some, maybe $1 for the, and they'll sell the pearl for 10,000 or 15,000 on the market. And all because why? They want some money. And therefore, money is sweeter than honey. So Prabhupada says one may risk everything to acquire money. And this is especially true of rich men who are too attached to household life. These are people who are not trained in the system of Devi Varnashram. They are not trained at all. But if they are trained, then they know how to enter into household life. That's the whole system of a Gurukul. They know what to do, not to go after sense enjoyment, but after goal of life. Yeah, so I'm educated, I've got a degree, but I cannot worry about making too much money. So instead of buying a big house, they downsize. Okay, I have enough rooms to keep my children. That's fine, good enough. Not go and look for big places and then waste money like that. Like that. So Prabhupada says in the former times, all the high castes, Brahmana, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, all are trained in Gurukul. So they know what to do. And then they are then given permission to go into household life. And that also must be given permission. Not anyone just go and find your girl or boy or whatever you find to marry. Like that. So those things must be done properly. Otherwise you get Varna Shankaras. As Arjuna was saying, situation is not good. In any case, Srila Prabhupada quotes the first verse of this chapter so many times. Kamara Achara Prabhupada Dharmam Bhagavatam Niha. So this is very important. Very rare that you get a human birth, and from the very beginning of your childhood, you should teach them Krishna consciousness. So that is what human society should be taken advantage of, not for anything else. Okay, text 11 to 13.
Kadam priyaya anukampitaya
Kadam priyaya anukampitaya Sangam rahasyam ruchiram stamantram
Suhritsuta sneha sita shishunam
Kalaksharanam anurakta chitta Putran smaram sadhur hridaya Bhadran svasarva pitarau cha dino. Brahman manojnora parichidam cha. Vrityasya kulya pashubhritya vargam. Tajeta kosha skriti vehamana. Karmani lobhadra vitripta kama. Aupasya jaivam bahumanyamana. Katam virajeta duranta moha.
How can a person who is most affectionate to his family, the core of his heart, been always filled with their pictures, give up their association? Specifically, a wife is always very kind and sympathetic and always pleases her husband in a solitary place. Who could give up the association of such a dear and affectionate wife? Small children talk in broken language, very pleasing to hear, and their affectionate father always thinks of their sweet words. How could he give up their association? One's elderly parents and one's sons and daughters are also very dear. A daughter is especially dear to her father, and while living at her husband's house, she is always in his mind. Who could give up that association? Aside from this, in household affairs, there are many decorated items of household furniture, and there are also animals and servants. Who could give up such comforts? The attached householder is like a silkworm which weaves a cocoon in which it becomes imprisoned, unable to get out, simply for the satisfaction of two important senses, the genitals and the tongue. One is bound by material conditions. How can one escape? This is a 5-year-old boy speaking, pure devotee. But his words are so heavy and it makes so much sense. It's not mincing any words here.
So I've seen two cases recently, very good devotees who apparently read the 7th canto and then they gave up the Griham and the Kupam. After a few years, they came back because it was so difficult to kind of...
It's not that. I think one shouldn't just, like I say, just because you read one day and you do it next day, you should be trained properly. So, in the excitement, we want to do like a pure devotee. We think tomorrow we'll go back to Godhead. It doesn't work like that. Just like when you first come to the movement, immediately you're all pure devotees. So pure devotee syndrome going on. It's a disease. But after that, you learn you're not really a pure devotee. Then you are a pretend devotee for a while. Because you don't want to do this or you don't want to do that. Yeah. And then finally, as you get old, then you realize you better do something. So in the beginning, when you're excited about this, you need guidance, proper guidance. You just can't say, I want to do it. I remember one time long ago, one boy was very attracted to our philosophy. So immediately he came and said, I want to come full time. Stay in the ashram. So he asked my opinion. I said, no, you can't. He said, why? I said, you haven't finished your college first. Go and finish your college. And he was very angry with me for many years. But then after a few years, he got married. Then he came to me and said, you gave me the best advice. Because he said he wouldn't have lasted in the ashram. So we have to know to see whether the person can or cannot do that. In general, we don't want just people coming in. They need their education because oftentimes they don't finish their education. And if they get married, they'll say, I joined the movement, now I have no good profession, I can't have. And the movement took away that opportunity. Yeah. So we always say, finish your degree first, and then you can think about joining after that.
But the danger is if they finish the degree, they'll never come back also.
It's okay. Then their interest wasn't really there.
So in Pune, the condition is you have to finish degree and also work in some company so that You have some experience. If you have to go back, you can still.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way I feel also. That you shouldn't come in unless you have some skills. Yeah. That you can either use now or you want to get married later, it'll be useful. Because it happens quite often. So we shouldn't think that won't happen.
But then the Kaumara Macharit Prajna is not happening really.
Well,
16-year-old who's inspired will not
be
given an opportunity.
You're asking about one situation, now you're jumping to another situation.
No, I'm just looking at these two verses. Right?
Yeah.
Kaumara Macharit Prajna was only 6 or 7 verses before.
Even if everyone goes through Gurukul, some people would want to get married. You cannot deny that. The point is, and if you have that, it will give you a framework, a support, foundation by which you can perform your Grihastha Ashram in Krishna consciousness. But if you don't have that, then you cannot artificially do that, which is what we were saying. They tried, but it didn't work out because they didn't have that foundation, proper foundation. We can't artificially give up everything like that. It doesn't work yet.
Rangan Maharaj himself got married, right?
Yeah, later on he gets married, yes. Yeah. And he has children and so on. because the Lord told him, go ahead. Yeah.
So Prabhu, during Prabhupada's time, when everyone joined, it's because of Prabhupada's mercy that potency was there. When everyone left everything and just moving the movement further was the main criteria.
And?
So that is why they did it, because of Prabhupada.
Yes. Prabhupada guided them, the love for Prabhupada, they could sustain themselves like that. Yeah. But we still have Prabhupada. So, under some higher authority, we can also do all these things now. It's just that I think our movement is so big that we think, everyone thinks they can get away with it. Instead of surrendering and doing properly under guidance, it doesn't work. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, the householder becomes griham under kupam, a dark well into which the man has fallen or woman has fallen. For such a man to get out is extremely difficult unless he is helped by a strong person. This is the point. The spiritual master who helps the fallen person with a strong rope of spiritual instructions. That means everyone must take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. A fallen person should take advantage of this rope, and then the spiritual master or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, will take him out of the dark world. It's very important to appreciate this point. Okay? That's 14.
Kutamba Poshaya Viyanijayur
Kutamba Poshaya Viyanijayur
Nabodhyate Ratama Vihatam Pramada
Nabodhyate Ratama Vihatam Pramada
Sarvatra Tapatraya Dukkitatma
Sarvatra Tapatraya Dukkitatma Nirvidyatena Swakutumba Rama.
One who is too attached cannot understand that he is wasting his valuable life for the maintenance of his family. He also fails to understand that the purpose of human life, a life suitable for realization of the absolute truth, is being imperceptibly spoiled. However, he is very cleverly attentive to seeing that not a single farthing is lost by mismanagement. Thus, although an attached person in material existence always suffers from threefold miseries, he does not develop a distaste for the way of material existence. Say how powerful and strong it is. Without Krishna consciousness, you will think this is right. What you're doing is correct and proper. In the second canto, remember, Sukadeva Goswami says, there's so much to talk about and deal with. Apasyam Atma Tattvam, right? He doesn't understand about the goal of life. Grihasya Grihameli, like that. So he thinks all his family members are going to save him. at the time of death. But when they are into sense enjoyment, they will come and look at their father, but they're all thinking when this guy will die. It's true. When he's going to go, it's frustrating to see a person die. Do you know that?
Yes, I have seen.
Yeah, it is not easy, it's not comfortable, it just irks, it's very difficult and painful. So generally people who don't understand the spiritual world or spiritual lifestyle, they will think, this is it's too much. I wish this guy will die quickly. Then we can get on with our lives. Like that. So therefore, Prahlad Maharaj is saying such a person is a fool. He's saying that. So Prabhupada also says that a foolish man does not understand the values of human life, nor does he understand how he is wasting his valuable life simply for the maintenance of his family members. Of course, here, foolish man, you can put foolish man or woman also. Okay, it applies nowadays. It applies to both parties. He is expert in calculating the loss of pounds, shillings, and pence. But he is so foolish that he does not know how much money he is losing, even according to material considerations. Chanakya Pandit gives the example that a moment of life cannot be purchased in exchange for millions of dollars. It's a fact, So when we think that, we feel very embarrassed that we are wasting our life. Although a materialistic person is expert in calculating costs and doing business, he does not realize that he is misusing his costly life for want of knowledge. You have to go through 8.4 million species to get a human form, and then if you don't use it, you're wasting, and therefore it's costly. For want of knowledge, what is this knowledge? Spiritual knowledge. Even though such a materialistic person is always suffering threefold miseries, he's not intelligent enough to seize his materialistic way of life. Just because he didn't get the education properly. And sometimes the education may be there, or sometimes the opportunities to learn is there, and yet we don't want to learn. As they say, ignorance is bliss. But in reality, it's not. It's a serious situation.
The problem is we are ignorant that we are ignorant.
We want to be ignorant. The problem is we want to be ignorant. Not that you are ignorant of being ignorant, that you want to be. Because if you have the knowledge, then you have to act on it. So generally people, when they get the knowledge, they get angry. They'll say, why, this guy, no, I cannot do it.
Only me, I have to do.
Yeah. So they're hoping this guy won't tell you. That's why when you sit, your guru is there, and guru is telling, do this, you're thinking, I hope the guru don't tell me to do it. Right? That is the desire is to and still continue enjoying. Intelligent person say, I wish my guru will tell me what I should do and I'll do it. Like that. Yeah. But that's not the case. Text 15.
Viteshu nitya vinivishta cheta
Viteshu nitya vinivishta cheta
Vidvamsa dosham paravittahartu
Vidvamsa dosham paravittahartu
Pratyehavatya pratyatajit Pratyehavatya
Pyajitendriyastat
Pratyeha vatyapi ajitendriyastat Ashantakamo harate kutumbi.
If a person too attached to the duties of family maintenance is unable to control his senses, the core of his heart is immersed in how to accumulate money. This is very important. Remember this statement. Although he knows that one who takes the wealth of others will be punished by the law of the government and by the laws of Yamaraja after death, he continues cheating others to acquire money. So sometimes because of weakness of heart, this is a weakness of heart. The core of heart is immersed in how to make money. And it becomes so polluted that he doesn't mind becoming sinful in how he gets the money. The case in point is Ajamil, remember? He also becomes like that. In the purport, Prabhupada says, people do not believe in a next life or in the court of Yamaraj. So therefore, they think it's okay to cheat people. and they're not interested. If you can escape, do it, right? That's what they do. I mean, what they say, cheat but don't get
God.
Yeah, and they are very happy about that. But then they don't think what kind of quality I'm developing. I'm a low-class person. And the reason is such character development is not taught in schools. And they don't attribute such qualities as valuable in schools at all. And so people come out of school thinking if they can beat up someone, they are heroes, like that. But in reality, they are just zeros, like that. So in the last sentence, Prabhupada says, despite whatever knowledge one has, that means material knowledge, one cannot stop his sinful activities if he is unable to control his senses. It includes spiritual knowledge also. So how to control senses? One must be under the guidance of a spiritual authority or a master or something. And then you can control your senses. Because on your own, you will not give up certain things. You won't. You will justify. Your mind becomes your guru. This is okay, you're a good person. And then when you make a mistake, the mind will say, it's only one time, don't worry. And then you make some mistake, say, it's okay, 1 or 2 times is okay. So it continues like that for a whole life. Text 16.
Vidvanapitam danuja kutumbam
Vidvanapitam danuja kutumbam
Pushnan lokayana kalpate vai
Pushnan svalokayana kalpate vai
Yasviya parakya vibhina bhavas
Yasviya parakya vibhinna bhavas
Sama prapadyeta yata vimuddha
Tama prapadyeta yata vimudra.
Oh my friends, sons of demons.
Sorry.
That's like a game. Oh my friends, sons of demons, in this material world, even those who are apparently advanced in education have the propensity to consider this is mine and that is for others. Thus, they are always engaged in providing the necessities of life to their families in a limited conception of family life, just like uneducated cats and dogs. As if they're educated cats and dogs. It's kind of funny though. They are unable to take to spiritual knowledge. Instead, they are bewildered and overcome by ignorance. Basically, he's saying uneducated, like, polished animalistic lifestyle. So that's funny, the Prabhupada writes. So you can have a PhD, you can be a scientist, you can be everything. But still, if your consciousness is, this is mine. What's the difference between you and a dog, right? The dog will say, this is my property, get out. Woof, woof, like that. And so they say, I'll protect my family, my children, my this, my that, like that. So therefore, Prabhupada says they are just like cats and dogs. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, a couple of lines from the top, the real Vidwan, that means one who's educated, is one who tries to understand his own position within this material world. For example, when Sanatana Goswami submitted to the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his first question was, Ke Ami, Kene Amai Jare Tapatrai. In other words, he wanted to know his constitutional position and why he was suffering from the threefold miseries of material existence. Right? Sometimes you get some terrible things. Maybe the government will send you a tax bill saying, we miscalculated, you need to pay another 20,000 tax. Then you'll say, why me? Like that. Why are you suffering? So who am I? What is the goal of my life? These are all important considerations. You have to ask these questions. So daily, if you have this thing written in your refrigerator and say, who am I? Then it'll at least make you think, who am I? Am I a fool or am I a servant of Krishna? Like that. Then at least you will push yourself to do something. Otherwise, the only other alternative is if you don't pursue spiritual life, you will fall into material lifestyles. Then you will think, why am I doing all this? And you'll be very unhappy because nobody will thank you. Like I said, it's a fact. As Kali Yuga progresses, less and less people appreciate other people. Even your own children will not appreciate you as much unless they are very Krishna conscious. Otherwise, they will say, well, that's your job. You're my father. You're supposed to take care of me. In America, they'll take you to court. Like if you don't pay their education bill, they'll take you to court and say, my father must pay the bills, like that. So that's what it is in society. That's exactly what's going to happen. So Prabhupada says all these big people in Kali Yuga, politicians, philosophers, scientists, all engage in foolish activities thinking this is mine and this is yours. The scientists invent nuclear weapons and collaborate with big leaders to protect the interests of their own nation or society, which you can see, right, in the last few weeks. North Korea, Iran, all these people, all of them want to make their own weapon, nuclear weapon. And that's not progress. It's a scare tactic. You don't want to help us, we'll fire this. But they are all doing this because they don't know the true self-interest. They don't understand. They don't know how to ask Ami. They don't, right? They don't know. Kena Amaya Jare Tapatrai. They don't understand those things. So Prabhupada ends the purport saying, at a certain point, one must give up family life and take to the renounced order of life. So if there has a couple, if the husband and wife, if let's say the husband cannot take sannyas, then they should take vanaprastha and then go out and preach to cultivate spiritual knowledge and become liberated. That means at a certain point, why you stay at home and do what? Take care of your grandchildren? You've already done your taking care of children. Why you all want to continue taking care? No more. I see a lot like that. A lot of families, the children grow up, they have their kids, they're working, and then the grandparents are taking care of the kids. So then, if the grandparents have their old values, then the children will say, why you do that to my child? Don't do that. So then they'll have conflicts. And I've seen that also. True. They'll say, no, I don't want my child to do that. You did that to me. I wasn't happy when I was a little kid. So they'll talk like that. Huh? That's a reality.
But even in devotee families?
Even devotees also. Why not?
Generation gap is always there.
Yeah. So you may have gone through, your parents did something, you never liked it, but now you have your parents at home. Then when you raise your son and daughter, when everything they do according to you is okay. As soon as you see there's a demarcation in your thoughts, you will say, you did that to me and I wasn't happy when I was young. That's why I never became good in these things. You'll make some man, they'll look very sad. Father and mother will look, we shouldn't be staying in this house. That's how they'll be thinking, because they feel embarrassed in their life now. So they will think we should commit suicide. They think like that. So you should be very careful. So it's one thing, I have 3 generations in my home, but it's another thing when they're all suffering, looking at one another. They look at each other, they hope that they can burn each other sometimes. No, it's reality. I'm just saying exactly what it is. But people don't want to face the truth, but that's a fact. They all hope when this old fart will die. Yeah, you're laughing. That's how they say it. Yeah. As you get old, the vata all gets off, and then that's what happens. So they'll say, let these people die. It's sad, but that's reality. Unless you're Krishna conscious, you will do all these things, or you think like that. Text 17. Okay, Tulsi.
Yeah, Tulsi.
Vacha
Putra Chidva
Yato nakaschet kvachapu chanchiva
Dina Samatmanam Alam Samarta
Dina Swamatmanam Alam Samarta
Vimochitam Kama Drisham Vihara
Vimochitam Kama Drusham Vihara Krida Mrigoyam Nigato Visarga
Tato Vidura Parihitya Daitya
Tato Vidura Parikritya Daitya
Daiteshu Sangam Vishayatma Keshu
Daiteshu Sangam Vishayatmakeshu
Upeta Narayanam Adidevam
Upeta Narayanam Adidevam
Samukta Sangyeshita Pavargaha
Samukta Sangheshito Pavarga.
My dear friends, O sons of the demons, it is certain that no one bereft of knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead has been able to liberate himself from material bondage at any time or in any country. Rather, those bereft of knowledge of the Lord are bound by the material laws. They are factually addicted to sense gratification, and their target is woman. Okay, nowadays it can be man, animal, or whatever. Indeed, they are actually playthings in the hands of attractive, we can fill in the blank, women. Victimized by such a conception of life, they become surrounded by children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and thus they are shackled to material bondage. Those who are very much addicted to this conception of life are called demons, asura. Therefore, although you are sons of demons, keep aloof from such persons and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, the origin of all demigods, because the ultimate goal for the devotees of Narayana is liberation from the bondage of material existence. He is 5 years old, he's talking to other 5-year-old kids. So you have to see their level of consciousness is pretty high because they can understand these things. It's amazing. No? So all throughout this discourse, Prahlad Maharaj hasn't changed, wavered, saying, "Oh, it's okay, no problem. You can do nonsense." He never. So Prabhupada writes, Prahlad Maharaj has maintained the philosophical point of view that one should give up the dark world of family life and go to the forest to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I remember he's talking to in the Gurukul, they're all boys. So therefore he's encouraging them to become brahmacharis, that's all. And if you're wondering why he himself married, because he didn't want anything from Narsinghadev. Right? Narsinghadev, I'll give you all the boons. He said, no, I don't need anything. Then the Lord said, then you become the king. Yeah. So to be a king, he needs to get married. So that's why he got married.
Prabhu, he asked for the service of his spiritual master, Narad Muni. And I was thinking that he really didn't get that direct service of Narad Muni. He
got, that is the service as a king to educate all his servants. I mean, subservience and all those people. As a king, whatever you do, your followers will follow you. Yeah.
But he didn't get the direct service of Narad Muni. Right?
That is the service. That is the service to his guru. Guru is most pleased when you can do that. Maybe one or two disciples can hang around the guru, but generally he's most happy when they go out and pitch. Both are direct service actually.
Can the king be not married? Like even today's Indian political, Indian prime minister.
Generally, kings should be married. Then they are very Raja Rishis. We are talking about Raja Rishis. So then their generation or their progeny would have the same good qualities. They can attract good generation. If they don't, then another unqualified person may become a king. So that is the reason the king will have a dynasty. Unless the Lord takes away the mercy. At least that's what I understand.
Another thing very beautiful I usually think about is Prahlad Maharaj in his family. Krishna appeared twice.
Yes.
Nrsimhadev and Vamana.
Yes. But again, they only appeared for Prahlad Maharaj.
Mm-hmm.
That was Bali Maharaj.
No, they appeared for Prahlad Maharaj. Because he is a pure devotee. And because of him, he came to deliver Bali Maharaj.
But then Bali Maharaj is a Mahajan, right?
Yeah,
Because
after that.
He became a pure devotee after that.
But it's because of Prahlad Maharaj. That's another reason why Prabhupada loves him so much. And he quotes him so extensively. So again, this Prabhupada quotes the verse, Griham andakupam vanam gato yaddarim ashrayeta. He stresses the same point, Prahlad Maharaj, same thing. To give up the attachment for family life. Don't have too much. You can have attached affection, but not too much. Don't be overly attached. In the end, you become disappointed, actually. For the reasons.
How can we know, Prabhu, that we have too much attachment or we don't have attachment for our family?
That's why you have to have good association. Then if you have good association, they will tell you you're too attached. On your own, how you know? You think I'm okay, this is normal.
We'll talk during Sankirtan, Mataji.
So if you are very good associate or people who you can take shelter of, who are your well-wishers, they will tell you. If they are honest, they will tell you. Yeah. Your well-wishers are people who will tell you things that you don't want to hear also. Must be straightforward. What is that? Anudvegam karam vakyam, right? Satyam prehitam chayat. Krishna says, you have to say it in such a way that it's palatable but doesn't hurt you, but the fact is satyam, truthful. That is the austerity of one's speech.
Which chapter is in there?
18. Okay, then he continues a couple of lines down. Prabhupada also says he has discussed many times. Yan maitunadi griham evi sukham hi tuchcha. So many times he said, I've already said that, right? So then a few lines down, he says, Adanta gopit vishatam tamisham puna punascharvita charvananam. Then he says, because they are unable to control their senses, they continue a life of chewing the chewed and thus descend to the darkest material regions. One should give up the association of such demons and adhere to association of devotees. So sometimes you may think devotees are good. In general they are, but maybe there are some devotees who are too much into sense enjoyment. So you have to be careful. You cannot say, oh, is my guru bhai or guru sister, whatever. And then but the person may ruin you. Yeah. So you have to be careful. Yeah.
Actually, one of my students was saying that she wants to do X, which is in line with what Srila Prabhupada has said in some of the purports, and her husband doesn't want that to happen. Both are initiated.
Yeah. So they should talk to their spiritual master. You see, all this problem comes up because they took initiation without understanding the philosophy properly. So you cannot just say, oh, okay, you get initiated, you queue up, take. No. The person must understand the philosophy also, what they are going into. Now these are the things mean. Then when you say like the 4 regulated principles, you have to tell them exactly what it means also. No meat eating means not just meat. It includes fish, eggs, insects, everything that moves, reptiles, snakes. People will just twist and turn and will say it's okay. That's so same. Illicit sex means what? You define. You tell them. So in the beginning they already know. So we all are, oh, let's not talk about it. It's a taboo. We shouldn't hear those bad things. So we don't hear, we don't tell. They don't know what is it. Then when after initiated, then you say, why are you doing this? Oh, I didn't know. Or I don't want to do. Then that's the problem. And then if you're unable to control senses, then you're going to come back again or go to hell like that. So if devotees themselves are not doing, then you should not associate too much with them, but rather you should be their well-wishers. Pray for them and tell them, hey, Prabhu, Mataji, this is wrong. It's wrong for you and for your spiritual health. And you are causing hurt to your spiritual master.
So when, as a devotee, if we cross these lines, it's more sinful because we already...
Yes. So therefore you have to go and tell your guru that I've done this, please forgive me. How can I rectify it? Yeah. Only rectification is do more service and don't do nonsense again. That's all. There's no other way. Yeah. We are all fallen, so we know we go through difficulties, but we shouldn't live in that difficulty. We shouldn't enjoy the difficulties. Text 19.
Nahyachyutam prinayato
Nahyachyutam prinayato
Bhayasho suratmaja
Bhagavatam Suratmaja
Atmavan sarvabhutanam
Atmavan sarvabhutanam Siddhatva sarvataha.
My dear sons of demons, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayana is the original Super Soul, the father of all living entities. Consequently, there are no impediments to pleasing Him or worshipping Him under any conditions, whether one be a child or an old man. The relationship between the living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always a fact, and therefore there's no difficulty in pleasing the Lord. That's a very good thing he's saying. Saying you can worship Him. It's not like you can't, because we have a permanent relationship. That is what he means by always a fact. It's always. And why is that? Because He is our creator. He's the father of all living entities. So He's giving them knowledge about what God is. Because the Asuras don't accept this. Now they are learning about who God means. So it's an exciting stage in their life. They're like, wow, we didn't know that there's someone who created us and who loves us. So we can reciprocate in a loving manner. So therefore He says, no impediments to pleasing Him. Why? Because He's our Father. So the father should always be pleased with the children when they come to seek advice or whatever they want to do service to the father like that. So he's happy. So it is pleasing to him. So therefore, under any condition, you can worship the Supreme Lord. Just like chanting the holy name, Nam Nam Akari Bauda Nija Sharva Shakti. So you can do it in any place, any time, because it's full of potency. Like that. So we shouldn't therefore think, I can only worship. Sometimes people are like that, right? They come from some, maybe their family situation, they are raised in a certain way. I can only chant after I do this or that, or they have some rules, Then you're thinking, where they come up with all these rules, But because they were raised like that, they talk like that. But any condition, we can worship. Just like Gajendra, he was suffering. And he called out to the Lord, and the Lord responded like that. So any condition. In the purport, Prabhupada writes in the second paragraph, as there is no difficulty in establishing the intimate relationship between a father and son, there is no difficulty in re-establishing the natural, intimate relationship between Narayana and the living entities. Prabhupada establishes it based on the verse Mama Yangsa Jiva Loka, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. Mama Yangsa means we are of the same nature as Krishna. So we are also spiritual. Therefore, we have already a permanent relationship. That is his point. What we are doing is re-establishing that relationship. And therefore, it's very nice to hear. And in saying that, he says, just do something. So he says, Salpam api asya dharmasya trayate mahatobhaya. Just do something. At least chant 16 rounds one time in your life. If you cannot. Right or not?
Yes.
Correct or not? Anvita?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And so Prabhupada then gives an example. If one performs even very slight devotional service, Narayan is always ready to save one from the greatest danger. The definite example is Ajamil. And we know about Ajamil, how he was saved. Simply because he always chanted Narayana, he was completely purified. And then he was saved at the time of death. So you don't need to have a big family, a wealthy family, or big education or whatever. You don't need that. All you have to do is simply chant his name. Pleasing Narayana does not require anything else. So then in the next paragraph, Prabhupada says one's duty. That means all of our duty is to revive our natural relationship with the Supreme Lord. Okay, we all have a relationship. Okay, you have a relationship. I have a relationship. The baby has a relationship. So we all have a relationship with the Supreme Lord. But we have to revive that relationship. And at the end, towards the end, Prabhupada says, to allow us to revive that relationship, Mahaprabhu personally came to evoke the Sankirtan movement. And therefore, he bestowed his blessings in that way by declaring this as Param Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtan. If one wants to derive the actual benefit from this human form, he must take the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Right? So how many rounds you are chanting? 10. Good. 10. Okay, we'll do this text 20 to 23 and then after that we'll end.
Paravareshu bhuteshu
Brahmanta Stavaradishu Bhautikeshu Vikareshu
Bhuteshata Mahatsucha Guneshu Gunasamyecha Gunajati Kare Tata Eka Eva Parotatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Vyaya Pratyagatma Swarupena Drishyarupena Cha Swayam Vyapaka Nirdesho Nirdesho Vikalpita Kevalanubhavananda Swarupa Parameshwara Mayayantar Hitaishwarya Iyate Gunasargaya.
The Supreme Personality of God here, the Supreme Controller who is infallible and indefatigable, is present in different forms of life, from the inert living beings, Stavara, such as the plants, to Brahma, the foremost created living being. He is also present in the varieties of material creations and in the material elements, the total material energy and the modes of material nature, Sattva Guna, Rajoguna, and Tamoguna, as well as the unmanifested material nature and the false ego. Although he is one, he is present everywhere, and he is also the transcendental supersoul, the cause of all causes, who is present as the observer in the cause of the hearts of all living entities. He is indicated as that which is pervaded and as the all-pervading supersoul, but actually he cannot be indicated. He is changeless and undivided. He is simply perceived as the supreme Satchit Ananda, eternity, knowledge and bliss. Being covered by the curtain of the external energy, to the atheist he appears non-existence. The Lord is actually everywhere as the Supersoul or Paramatma. He's existing in the atoms, inside the atoms, outside the atoms. He's in the protons, Prabhupada says in the neutrons, electrons, everywhere. So we have gone through this. He exists in three features. Right? From the very first canto we know this, right? Yeah. Vadanti tat yeah. So he can exist in these three features. And therefore he is present everywhere as Brahman or Paramatma. Like that. But both Brahman and Paramatma are dependent on Krishna in a sense. So therefore he quotes Brahmano hi pratistaham. Without Krishna, there's no existence of Brahman or Paramatma.
Please wait, Hari.
Right. So Prabhupada writes in the third paragraph, the supreme cause is Krishna, and devotees who have surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead can realize Him and His presence within the universe and within the atom. Andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam. Okay. That means he can actually see the Lord in the atom. So in one sense, when Prahlad was asked by Hiranyakashipu, can you see the Lord? He says, yes. Can you see him? Yes, I can see him. Actually, Prahlad was seeing the Lord everywhere. Wherever he looked, he saw the Lord.
It's literal.
He was actually seeing. He's Bhagavad. So then when he said, look, is he in this pillar? He was seeing the Lord there, smiling, waving. So, but this guy was so angry. So the Lord came in the fearful form. Like that. Yeah, so then Prabhupada says this realization is possible only for devotees who are fully surrendered onto the lotus feet of the Lord. For others, it is not possible. So in one sense, you know why, even though we are practicing, we cannot realize that. Because we haven't completely or fully surrendered. So therefore, it's not so easy. How do you surrender? You surrender through the process that's given by Srila Prabhupada, through the spiritual master. So that's again a criteria. We need those people to actually help us surrender. On our own, we won't surrender. Can't surrender. So, one of the things that Prabhupada gives us an insight into is that this boys or Prahlad's class friends, right, classmates, they thought that realizing the absolute was extremely difficult. Yeah. But you can see how Prahlad is making it very simple. Just simply you can worship him. So unless we understand the philosophy, we cannot give it to another person. They will think it's very difficult also. So it's imperative that we practice nicely and read Prabhupada's book, and then we can also explain nicely. So they can appreciate, oh, okay, I can now realize God. I was thinking, oh, it's just some energy or what. But when you explain to them the Lord in three features, He exists in different ways, then they'll say, wow, I never thought about that. Because they don't have that knowledge. We have that, we can share with them. So therefore, we have to explain wherever we are. In whatever situation, if the opportunity presents, we should present nicely. Not that we want to show that we have the knowledge. That's not the reason we are here. No, we want to help others. So, and then the other point Srila Prabhupada makes is realization of the Lord, however, is possible only in the association of devotees. You cannot say, I am going to realize on my own. Good luck, Yeah. That's all you can say. It's not possible. You need the devotees' blessings. Very important. Devotee blessing is so important. At the end, I think in the first canto, 8th chapter, Bhishma says, he gives 9 things. One of the things he says, you cannot hold grudges in people also. You have to forgive people and move on. Otherwise, you cannot come to realizations. Then you cannot become a Bhagyavan, which is what Prabhupada says. The opportunity to take up the process seriously, then you are a Bhagyavan. You cannot just do it a little bit. Then we are not fully a Bhagyavan. We become like Kripanas, like that. And when we become Bhagyavan and practice very sincerely, then we can see the Lord everywhere. And that is the main thing. At this moment, we don't have sufficient faith that the Lord is existing everywhere. we have only insufficient faith to go to the temple and we say he's there. But when we chant, we don't have sufficient faith that we are chanting his holy name. So we are not taking full advantage of this Bhagavan. Being fortunate enough to get that holy name, we are not fortunate enough to taste that. That requires good association again. Otherwise, the Lord is always covered by the curtain of material energy or Maya. And therefore, we cannot see him in that sense. But if you are sincere, before you give up your body, the Lord will appear to you and say, I'm pleased with you. Okay, come back to me this life. Because of Srila Prabhupada and your Guru, I'm taking you. Yeah, that's how it is.
So even if he doesn't fully serve.
Yeah, even Prabhupada says 75% if he can do, he'll take you back to God.
So at least he should be fixed up.
But chant 16 rounds. But yeah. So then he will get the full mercy. Get the mercy. Why you don't want? Otherwise, next life is you don't know what you will be. You'll be the small rabbit running around. I saw this rabbit this morning running all over the place. I was thinking,
such an unfortunate.
Yeah, but then he was getting all the prasadam. So Mataji was giving the prasad. All right, so yeah, any comments, questions? Tulsi, you have a question? Okay. Otherwise, thank you. We'll catch up tomorrow, text 24. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
So Prahlad Maharaj's consciousness is fully...
So he was born pure devotee. He's spontaneous devotee on that level. We are not. We have to do sadhana bhakti to become like him, but he is not like he is already from the day he.
It's amazing how each sloka is so long.
It's all coded.
Filled with so much nonsense.
But it's amazing. This is, I think, 7 cantos. Prahlad Maharaj section is one of the most potent sections. If you read one time, like the Prabhu was saying, they gave up everything.
when I just got married, Radhisham Prabhu told me to study this stuff.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, because it talks about family grihastha ashram a lot.